All right, so at what age were you adopted?
I was adopted at birth.
At birth, okay. And I'm sure you don't remember that day.
No.
Okay, all right.
But it was a great day.
I'm sure it was. What's the story that you heard about the day you were born and adopted?
The story I heard was actually that my biological mom had met my adopted mom a few months before I was born. So it wasn't like they met that day and they were like, I'll take it. So there was a plan in place, and my adopted mom sort of supported them emotionally through the last few months of the pregnancy because my adopted mom is a pediatrician.
Oh, okay.
So she wasn't married, she wanted children and wasn't gonna make them authentically, so decided to adopt. So the story was that she was basically in the delivery room and then took me home.
Oh, nice.
Is what I understand.
Okay. And you grew up nice, normal home, or?
Yeah, I had a wonderful childhood. I think there was questions at some point about, do I have a dad? Because she was single and she never got married. But I understood very clearly that this was my family. And then as soon as I could understand, it was, you were adopted.
At what age was that?
Probably 4 or 5.
In my head, I was thinking like, must be like 16.
Yeah, no, I think it was much earlier, like 4 or 5. As soon as I could understand the difference between having a baby normally and adopting one, and it's the same thing. Meaning I'm your mom, and that doesn't make a difference.
Got it. Okay, and I'm sure you felt like, all right, I understand.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a weird child. Weird stuff was good with me.
Okay. All right, so talking about weird things, at about what age do you feel like your life changed? It took a...
So I would say I went through normal teenage stuff with my mom, disagreeing about friends and parties and outfits, but I was an athlete, so I was sort of kept out of trouble by sports for a long time. And then I would say 15, 16, marijuana and beer and parties sort of started to take hold, and missing school and lying and getting caught was more common than telling the truth, I would say. So as much as my mom would say the truth is always okay, I knew that if I was smoking weed and drinking beer, that wasn't okay. So I wasn't gonna tell the truth. So at the end of senior year, cocaine and other drugs entered the picture, crystal meth. And so I stopped going to school.
See, in my household, that's not how it would go. When you say you leaving the house in the morning telling your mom, yeah, I'm going to school, and then you're off to do crystal meth.
Yeah.
She didn't think, like your
teacher
didn't?
Or I stopped sleeping at home. So I'd sleep at friends' houses, which could have been anyone from a drug dealer to a friend's whose parents were maybe less strict, who let us hang out in the backyard or the basement doing our homework. And then I lost a lot of weight.
Okay.
So my physical appearance suffered, and that was probably the obvious sign.
Yeah. And you weren't working out any type of different workouts?
No. So, yeah. I was awake for days at a time. I was lacking sleep. And so when I would show up to school, I would get eyes and ears on me that were really hyper-focused. Yeah, and I wasn't used to that in that way.
All right, so you're starting to skip school, right? And I mean, in my house, like I couldn't skip down the hallway. So how is it that you're skipping school and mom is not paying attention, or what is it?
So I think there comes a time in like our adolescence where our parents, they walk the line of tough love and compassion, and where do we punish and where do we allow room to be ourselves. And so I think that my mom really struggled with that, understandably so. And sort of you can only argue so much and be lied to so much from your child before you're just like, hands got to get thrown up. She's a single mom, she's a pediatrician, she's a doctor, she's a full running practice. You know, now she would say she lost so much sleep that she didn't ever really operating on full cylinders anyway.
Wow.
So you have to take care of your professional practice, you have to take care of your home, and then your daughter's running wild. I think at some point it was just, I hope she's going to school. And I think she believed for a long time because everyone would tell her she's an athlete, she's a student, she's fine.
Nobody from the school called and said, yo, Becca hasn't been here in 3 weeks.
So eventually they did.
Uh-huh.
And I was called in by the headmaster, I think. And we sat in his office and he basically said, this is your chance. You're going to graduate in a week. And I said, sure, but first I'm going to go to Mammoth with my friends. And so that was sort of really indicative of my mindset of that point, which was
told
like,
him that?
Yeah. I said, cool, my friends are waiting downstairs, so can we start this whole like last chance thing on Monday? And so I didn't graduate on time. I went missing and was posted missing as a missing person to the police. And I was found by private detectives, sick and skinny, and high, basically.
In Mammoth?
No, in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I think I went to Mammoth and came home and then kept on keeping on.
Oh my God.
Was found, taken home because I was a minor. So that was the good point. Fell asleep for a ton of hours and then woke up and was escorted by large men to a wilderness program in Atlanta, Georgia. So went on an airplane with them, landed on the airplane, walked into the wilderness, which I don't really remember because I was basically detoxing at this point.
Yeah.
And I woke up underneath a tarp in the woods and there was nobody around me. And then all of a sudden a woman walks up to me with like a bag of food and she's like, here, you're not allowed to talk to any humans. You're on Earth phase. And basically like I'm still high. And I'm like, this woman's talking about Earth phase. Like, am I in an army camp? Like, where am I? What am I doing?
That don't sound like no army camp.
Earth phase, she said.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's like to be high anyway? Like on meth? You're already
on
like,
meth? Nah, I quit. I quit 28 years ago.
Well, you're already like talking weird and listening to people say weird stuff. So she was like, you're on Earth phase. And I was like, well, thank God, I guess, because I don't know what else to think at this point.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I want to take one step back.
Yeah.
How did you even get into it? I mean,
So-
from smoking weed and drinking
Sure.
to meth.
So I think cocaine was probably the gateway to meth only because it's a similar family of drugs. It's a stimulant. And there was a sense of energy, we would say, that comes along with stimulant drugs that makes you feel really powerful. And it sets the dopamine off in your brain. And we know that your body has a natural pharmacy, right? Adrenaline, dopamine, endorphins. So when the drug is put into your body, your brain's telling you that it's a good thing. So for anyone that is in tune with their body, like I was as an athlete, I knew how to take care of myself. I knew how to eat good food. I knew how to exercise. Here comes this substance that honestly elevated me spiritually, it felt like, to this level that I had never been before. And then, of course, you become chemically dependent, and then your body needs more and more. But in terms of where I found meth, once you're sort of in the drug zone, you
It
never
just comes
know
to
who
you.
you're going to encounter. Yeah. So I think, I don't remember the first time I did crystal meth. But what I'll say is that at the end of high school, prior to me being brought to Wilderness, I got put in the psych unit at UCLA for adolescents. So I had been missing for a few days and I came home and I called my mom. She was at work and I said, can you come home and brush my hair? Like, I never ask anyone to brush my hair. I don't even brush my hair. Okay. So calling my mom, who I'm upset with all the time, and saying, can you come home and brush my hair, was sort of a huge, ginormous red flag.
Yeah.
So she rushed home from work and then she took me to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And what I like to think is that I went into that psych unit with a PhD, but I came out with an MD. Because the kids that were in there were well-versed. They had drug connections. They were already in that world. So it's like jail, right? You put a bunch of people with the same mistakes and the same bad fortune into one room, and they band together.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Because now we're in survival mode because our bodies are in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so I'm detoxing from drugs. I have doctors telling me I'm bipolar. So now you're labeling me, which I was fine with.
Yeah.
At this point, I have a doctor for a mom. If I'm bipolar, give me the pills.
Yeah.
Let's do this so I can get out.
Yeah.
And so there were people in that psych unit, children essentially, that led me to the next.
So Atlanta did not help.
So after I was supposed to graduate high school, I went to Atlanta instead, right? So I spent the summer in Wilderness. And after that, the recommendation was that I don't come back to Los Angeles. So my family, my adopted family, the only family I ever knew, was in Boston. So my mom's siblings were in Boston, Massachusetts. So the plan was from Wilderness to go to another psych hospital, but this time I was an adult because I turned 18 in July. So the summer after high school, I became an adult. So I signed myself into yet another hospital program and lived with family eventually, and then eventually ran away from that family, dropped out of school, and was on drugs again.
Oh my gosh.
So no, Wilderness didn't work, but I don't know that anything works until you're ready, so.
Okay, so you ran away, you were in Boston.
So I was living with my aunt and my uncle, and I was going to a city college, and I met some kids at school and wasn't ready to be sober or healthy and was completely lost. So yeah.
What was the first thing you went right back to?
Probably a marijuana cigarette. No, probably a beer, honestly. Probably
That
some
was
kind
it?
of drink, and then it led to cocaine and marijuana
Oh my gosh.
and ecstasy.
Let me ask you a question, because you've been on that side. You personally, and not to make anybody attack you, do you think marijuana is a gateway drug?
I think marijuana is an acceptable way to escape your current state. So what we're teaching ourselves is that something outside is going to help or fix something inside. Okay, so from a clinical standpoint, I wasn't able to articulate super young, I have anxiety and I'm going to smoke this joint. It was, I want to be high, right? I want to have fun. But below the wanting to get high is something that isn't happy with how I feel in this moment.
Yeah.
So is it a gateway drug? Sure. But so can the addictive personality can latch onto anything.
Gotcha.
I think some people would say marijuana is something I do here and there. That isn't what my brain says when I do marijuana. It says I want to get higher and higher and higher.
Okay.
So for the right personality, yeah.
Gotcha. You're back in Boston. You're back. What happens now?
So I spend almost 9 or 10 months using and drinking again with strangers who become my friends. And then eventually my mom flies from California and brings me home.
Wow.
I get a job, things are okay for a little bit. I sort of recoup from that whole journey. I work for the Kyle Massey show,
Oh.
which followed the Raven show, so we loved that. I was a PA, so I worked on site, which was really fun actually. But that's the land of staying up all night. And slowly but surely, the show ends, the drug use goes up, and I am in a tumultuous relationship with a guy that ends poorly, and I'm back in the hospital
Oh my gosh.
for my 21st birthday.
Too much drinking or drugs?
Probably
drinking?
all of it.
All of it.
Yeah,
Did you ever think I might die?
yeah. But I often didn't care if I woke up. Because you reach such a bottom, and everyone's giving you so much heat, and the hole is so deep that you lose the stamina to climb out every time. You're like, whatever, if I don't wake up, I don't wake up. Because you're selfish. You're using. All you care about is being high.
You're gonna make me cry. What happens now that you're 21? You woke up clearly. What happens?
So I eventually leave the hospital. I've put on 30 pounds. So now as a female, I'm uncomfortable in my skin once again. This was always the journey with the drugs, was up and down with the weight. And like I said, as an athlete, I knew how to take care of myself. But when you're high and you're drinking and you're struggling to have money in your pocket, your health goes out the window. So a huge trigger for me was my weight. So I left the hospital. Now I feel like I'm overweight. I'm uncomfortable in my skin. I stayed sober for as long as I could. And then we fell off again.
When you say you felt, before we jump into this, when you say you felt like you were overweight, were you, looking back now, were you really overweight?
I think I was out of shape and my body was a different shape than I was used to. Would I have called myself fat? No. But I don't remember feeling that way.
Gotcha. Okay, so what happens now? We've fallen off again.
So now we're using again, maybe I'm 22, 23. So we repeat the same patterns because we're insane and we expect different results. So we date a guy who's not healthy. He is growing medical marijuana and making millions of dollars. So this was sort of what I believe is the height of OG Kush Hydro times. And he was basically the chemist.
Wow.
So he was being hired by other grow people to go in. So I now moved into a grow house that was hectic and cool at that time. And I'm smoking weed, but I'm healthy because I'm smoking weed and not doing harder drugs. That doesn't last for long, and so I get into the harder drugs again. We break up. I move back to my mom's house, and I meet the next guy. Go to a party on July 4th in Venice Beach. I had ridden my beach cruiser down from my mom's house to Venice Beach, and I am dripping in sweat because I'm back on stimulant drugs. And I have my dog in my beach cruiser basket. And I'm high as a kite, and I'm jamming out, and I'm feeling great, and I go to a party. And I meet a guy who I later find out is a gigantic cocaine dealer. So at this point, like, I don't know why I have to date these guys. Can't I just buy from them?
Yeah.
But no. So give it a couple weeks, and I moved in with him.
Oh my gosh. Is your mom saying, don't?
Yeah. She doesn't know. Because I'm telling her I met a great guy who's better than the last one.
And you think she believes you?
Well, I believe that because now I'm getting free Coke.
No.
She doesn't believe me.
Okay.
She says, I hope you're being safe, which makes me want to cry every time. But I'm like, I am, bye. So a few months into that relationship, he's calling my mom and saying that I'm freaking out because I am. Because now I'm doing cocaine all night. And he calls her and she says, oh, just make her take her pills, which I haven't been on consistently. I don't even know what those pills are anymore. So he comes to me and he's like, is there something I need to know? And I was like, what do you mean? So on my 25th birthday, I'm back in the psych hospital. So 18, 21, and 25, same story. So you would think at this point that I'm like, maybe I should stop. So I come out of that hospital. Him and I go on and off for another couple of years. And then I finally, at 27, still have my wits about me. I still have my car. Say I'm going to go to rehab. And I got. And it was great. And I'm still sober.
What was the moment?
I think well, here's the thing. I'm not an idiot. And addicts aren't idiots. We're extremely resilient. And we're really compassionate. I am, at least. And so I knew that I was hurting people, and I knew I was hurting myself, and I knew where it would lead. And I really didn't want to spend my 30th birthday in a hospital. So I also began to teach yoga around that time. So there was this huge spiritual discrepancy between being this like Zen teacher and doing cocaine.
Yeah.
Or drinking or Molly or meth or whatever it was, that it's hard to like walk into a yoga class and be like, hi everyone, take a deep breath, when I can't even breathe through my own 2 nostrils because I'm stuffy from drugs. So I was living with a friend, and I sort of knew that I was almost ready to be sober. I just didn't know what that would look like. And so we made some phone calls, and I found a treatment center to go to, and I finished my drugs, and I drank a couple 40s, and I smoked 15 bowls of weed and felt nothing, and drove myself to treatment. And it was the best thing ever. I had no responsibilities. All I had to do was eat and talk to a therapist and be a nice person and go to bed and wake up and go to the YMCA to run on a treadmill. And I was happy.
That was 27.
That was 27.
Story continues.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. That was maybe 28.
Okay.
Because I turned 32 5 days ago.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Thank you. And I'll be 4 years sober on August 14th.
Look at that.
So that must be 28.
We're going to drink water to celebrate.
We are going to figure out how old I am at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, 27 or 28, you're sober. We now continue back to a different part of your life. Okay. So, what happens at 31?
So 31 is great because I think I'm starting to find out who I really am sober, right? So now I haven't had drugs in 3.5 years. And I am pretty stoked on that. Like, I actually feel good. My addictive personality is now addicted to being healthy.
Good.
Which is great. I'm teaching yoga sober. And I am excited, but there's this piece, right? There's this link in my chain that remains a mystery, which is my parents.
Yeah.
So there was something universal holding me back in looking for them, because I think there was a deep-seated fear that maybe they weren't alive and I had missed the boat and it had passed me by. So I started looking online, and I have the wristband, the mini little wristband that I wore when I was born. So it's pink, and it has my mom's name on it, my biological mom. So I took that wristband and I went online, and I found people by her name, but I didn't really know because there was no pictures, and I didn't pursue it. So one time I felt this like energy come about me, and I was like, I'm strong enough. If they're dead, I'll handle it.
Yeah.
I have people to support me. People are prepared. They know I'm looking. And we can't live in fear of demolition of our feelings all the time. So yeah, shit's gonna go down, and now I have the tools to deal with it. So I find her on LinkedIn. I didn't know it was her, but I find her name and I message her. I said, I'm on a search, and it led me to this name. Do you know who I am?
That's it.
That's pretty much it.
And it's just your name on your profile.
Yeah. And my picture. She didn't have a picture. She wrote back maybe a day and a half later and said, I don't really want to do this on text. It seems impersonal. And I was like, cool, I don't care. You need to confirm who you are. And so I said, great. If this is you, is this you? And she said, yes, it's me. And she said, can we have a phone call? I said, absolutely. So we scheduled a phone call for Saturday. I think that was a Tuesday. And so a few days go by and through, and we talk on the phone for like 2.5, 3 hours. And it's sort of like what you're doing to me right now. I was like, so, what happened?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
And she said that she was young. She was 21. She grew up in a family that was very religious, and she was scared. And so she actually kept this a secret to her family all these years.
Wow.
And she gave me some family background, some medical history. We laughed. She's very funny. And so there were things that she would say that I knew I had got from her. Her sense of humor. She said, do you have big boobs? I said, yeah. She said, you're welcome. And so things like that started to really unfold. It was a really natural conversation.
Yeah.
And I asked her about my biological dad, and she pretty quickly was neutral.
Yeah.
So I thought that would to be interesting because she had an opinion about every other thing on the phone call. But when it came to him, she remained really steadfast. And as an adult, I understand that we don't want to sway people's opinions about things, but it was pretty clear to me that as steadfast as she was, it was because he had made her feel sad.
Got it.
So I went on to look for him on Facebook, and I found him. Same thing. I'm on a search, curious if you know who I am. He didn't respond for a few days. And then all of a sudden, on Facebook Messenger are these like long paragraphs. Holy shit, what the fuck? You're my daughter? Holy shit, excuse my language. Oh my God, are you mad? Oh my God. And it was just like this stream of consciousness that was really genuine, I felt. And so I eventually responded. I was a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I eventually responded and was really loving. You know, thank you for this information. I love you. He told me like my whole life story, his whole life story. He was so sorry. He feels so bad. And so that was what happened. So then I booked a ticket to meet BioMom in upstate New York. And I hope that they don't hear this, but they're like lake people. The town is so small, and she has 5 siblings, so 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and they all have had kids. So she never got married or had any more kids. And about a week before I arrived, she told her family.
Wow.
So she's like, hey, I have to tell you something. 31 years ago, I had a daughter, and she's coming on Monday. And so I came.
How did they respond to
Oh, they
you?
love me, duh.
Oh.
Nah. They were stoked. They're family people.
Yeah.
So they love their family. I think a couple of my family members were like, how could you not tell us?
Yeah.
But to be honest, my biological mom had done a lot of work, meaning therapeutically, spiritually. So she was okay. She's like, they've been judging me for years. What's one more judgment?
Right.
And it was a good opportunity for her to prove that adoption isn't bad, that it can work out, that miracles happen, that people's lives are saved by this stuff. It's not giving up your child all the time. It's doing what's right. So that was good for her and them, I think, to see.
How are you feeling?
I feel really grateful that she's alive.
Yeah.
I feel really grateful that she's normal crazy. She's hilarious. She is a good person.
Good.
And so in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I am really grateful. And part of me always thought, oh, I wish I had found her sooner, but I don't, at this stage in my life, if I live in that mindset of I could have gotten sober at 18, well, guess what?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Is addiction something that either member of your family, either side, had to deal with?
Yeah, so I think there's some cigarette smoking on her side. There's definitely some alcohol drinking. I don't know that it's a debilitating disease on my mom's side.
Okay.
I think it's more of a behavioral thing. On my dad's side, it certainly is. So he admitted to me that he was a heroin user, that he had used harder things, had even overdosed at times. And to this day, or the latest report is that he doesn't use the hard stuff anymore, but he does use medical marijuana, and 12-step programs aren't for him. And so I'm a little, I try not to have my own ideas about what's really going on because I want to meet him and have a chance to understand. But when he found out that I was going to meet her, he seemed to internalize that as him being less than or not important.
Yeah, and that's not the situation.
And that's not the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just what happened first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an order of operations.
Okay. Lastly, I'm sure you told them your story. How do they feel seeing you overcome so much?
Well, they're both separately really proud.
Good.
I think that biological mom has a lot of her own feelings about creating a baby with someone who was maybe damaged.
Yeah.
or struggled or didn't have a full set of cards, right? Because I like to say it that way, like these are the cards you're dealt. He's super proud. He's, like I said, his paragraphical communication of flagrant, in the middle of the sentence, he's like, but are you mad at me? I'm like, whoa, we're on this topic. No, I'm not mad. I love you. I'm so grateful that you gave me a life that was potentially safer than the one I would have had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're really proud of me. I now work in that industry.
Wow.
So I work for rehab, basically. And I help people go to treatment.
Good.
And so I'm able to share that with people. And I have a lot of opinions about our current state of affairs around the epidemic and our mental health conversation as a nation. I don't think we talk about it enough, and not everyone has to be an addict or a depressed person to feel empowered to change their life. But I do know that suffering is universal.
Gotcha.
And I do know that healing is too. So I think they survived, I survived, and the mission is to keep helping others survive.
I want to ask you this. I know I said lastly last time, but this is the for real last question.
You always say that.
I got you.
Okay.
If anybody wants to talk to you, is that okay?
Oh yeah, I have no boundaries.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
Okay.
No,
Because I want to tell you to tell them how they can find you.
Yeah, so I think that the ultimate healing answer is human connection. So what do I do when I use drugs? I isolate, and left to my own devices, I'm okay if I don't wake up in the morning. Having one person say to me, I see you, I love you, I hear you, changed everything. You're not different, basically, right? You're not special. You, without all the mess, is one of a kind. But you, with all the problems, is just like everybody else. Not to make you feel some type of way, but to make you feel connected to the solution. So yeah, everyone can talk to me. I mean, if they want to.
Okay.